Welcome to an impromptu Monday night stream here in Denver, Colorado. We are, going to be talking about whatever you want to talk about in terms of Q&A, but also in lieu of people talking, we have some prepared stuff for just how we can work with creativity and Logic. I know that sometimes it feels like Logic Pro is a really creative tool, and sometimes that's the case. And sometimes I think it's a little bit of a fabrication, and we're supposed to feel like it's really creative when in fact perhaps it's not as creative. And really, the creativity of all of our projects relies on what we bring to it, right? And so that's what we want to talk about a little bit. And of course, conjecture or complain or discuss some of the stuff that is or isn't happening right now with Logic. And by that, I mean, for instance, we could discuss how long it's been since Logic Pro for iPad was released in a subscription model, how long they've been taking our money with zero updates. So we could talk about that as well if anyone's interested, but I'm assuming more of you are going to be jumping on as we go, and so you may not be getting that cue this early on in the stream. Anyway, let's talk about creativity a little bit and what I meant by sometimes it feels like this is a really creative tool, and yet perhaps it's a little bit fabricated sometimes, right? And by that I mean, as a perfect example, let's look at the drummer track for a second, right? This is one of the more impressive tools in Logic. I love the drummer track. I've made lots of videos about it and talked about it in many different ways. And yet, first of all, every single person who clicks on Kyle, right? Number one drummer in the number one category, it's going to sound like this. And so we have these parameters which allow us to feel like we're being creative, right? So we go top right corner, loudness and complexity. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back to there. There we go. Let's go to the top left corner, top right corner. So it's not like a drummer in the sense that it's a human who's going to respond to these settings we make. In fact, they're all tied into patterns that are programmed. And every time we replicate the exact same setting, it's going to play the exact same thing. So it's not true creativity. It's a fabrication in a way. It's a system with a process, right? And so I think that that's an important distinction to make. We have the technology to be really creative and to create a drummer tool that is playing new things every single time and playing things that react to the music. And I mean, we have the technology out there. I mean, we all know AI, Chat GPT, all that stuff is out there and it could happen. It's just not happening yet. We'll see. I'm imagining a world in a few years that a lot more of this stuff is happening. In Logic, though, we can replicate, or I guess imitate, true creativity in a few ways. Let me just pull up in a bass loop for a second so I don't have to play anything. And we'll do an electric bass. Right? Something really simple like that. So we replicate creativity in this case by knowing our tools and how to use them at a very high level. That's the only way we can do this in kind of a semblance of what it would be like to have humans doing this. So we turn on things like the groove track, right? And we set this drummer as the groove track, and then we do this as the match groove track. It looks like we're in a key that didn't like. So you're hearing, well, I don't know why it's MIDI. It shouldn't be actually having any issues, but it certainly sounds a little warbly. But that's not what we're looking at right now. So then the groove track. We set the drummer as the timing source, the bass to follow that. Two different instruments created by Logic, two different everything with those. Let's settle down the drums just a little bit. And then we're going to say, instead of a kick and snare pattern, we're going to say follow, and we're going to have it follow the bass. And so that's right over here next to me. Doo-doo-doo. And so now the drums are going to change what they're doing based on what the bass is doing. It's not changing very much. Let's turn that off for a second. You'll see it actually adds, let's zoom in a little bit here. Let's see. So if I turn that on and off, here, let's follow. Let's see. You can see some of it changing down there in the bottom half of the drummer region. So it is doing a different part, not by much, but a little. Okay, so cool. That means that we have these parts interacting with each other. They're playing off each other a little bit. It's all technical, meaning it's doing some sort of analysis of what part is down there and changing the pattern based on parameters. It's not like a human still, right? It's imitating some sort of humanity, but not replacing it by any stretch of the imagination. So we have all these tools that help us create this. We can get closer and closer to creativity in this one sense by understanding how the tools work at a very high level. So that's our goal always. How do we make this so that we understand how the tools work so that no matter what situation we're faced with, that we can get the best performance and the most human performance out of it. Now, is that going to be recording real musicians in the studio? Maybe that's the best way. Is it going to be getting the MIDI into the editor and tweaking this until we get something that sounds just like a bass player might play if they were playing it on a real bass? Could be, right? So we go through and we can do this a number of different ways, but learning the tools at a high level becomes really critical to that. And so finding out exactly what makes the most sense, I think, is really maybe not tricky, but certainly takes some time and effort to get it right. Another thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about creativity would be something along the lines of, with Logic at least, how do we turn a small idea into a song? I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with in a tool such as Logic. Let's delete those pieces right there. And this again ties into understanding the features. So we're going to open up our global tracks. And this is one of my favorite things that I've shown before in other videos, but I think it ties into a broader topic of creativity. Because I think what happens with people who are creating And they end up with all of these like snippets of songs that are 8 bars long. And that rhymed. Could be a song lyric. Instead of setting yourself up to just have snippets, we set ourselves up to have a full song before we even start the snippets. And so I think this works really well with something like Logic, for instance. We use the arrange track here. Let's double the verse and make that into a longer section. Let's add a chorus, and we'll make this for now just as long as that, and we'll glue those together, and then we'll do a shorter bridge, right? So this is our, at least one of each of the different components here. Cool. What we do then, delete our drummer track down here. Let's make a brand new drummer track, and you'll see it'll add parts for each of those parts of the songs. Now this is with, looks like Darcy right now in the songwriter, pop songwriter category. Let's listen to a little bit of each. I mean, those sound appropriate for each of the styles. Now, we don't have to stick with Darcy. Let's do, let's see, this is Graham. Same thing, we switch drummers. It's going to give us those things. Now, we don't even have to stick in that style. Indie pop, right? Or indie disco. We have all of those. Okay, so we get all that stuff. This means that as we go through and work on this, so say I've got, let's add a keys part to this, right? And we'll loop this out. Maybe I don't even know if I want the full thing, but let's loop out that section. So we'll just get like a little bit of a vamp or something here, chord progression. Match the levels a little bit. Okay. And maybe I don't even want to record it. I just want to play it and see what I like. We'll use the capture recording tool so I can do that afterwards. So maybe we'll see what we have with that. Oh, I don't want to delete those. So I jumped the gun a little bit on the tempo. But I do want them to start at the very downbeat so I can loop this. And then we'll just, let's see. Oh, I missed it by a whole bar. Oof. So let's do that. Let's listen once. That's where it was right there. Okay, let's just re-record it. We don't need to be stuck on any one thing. So I might just hit the record button. Let's see, did I hit the right number of bars? I did, but we already have like the groove track enabled, so I'm just going to have that key part quantized right to it as if I did it on purpose. And I don't like that bass. So we're going to kill that bass and just put on something synthier. A little bit softer. We can just loop that out too, except I started recording early, so let's make sure that that doesn't get cut off when I loop. Okay, cool. And of course, groove track that as well. And then we add just a little bit of another part here. So I'm building this using that structure that I created at the very beginning, right? So I already know this is a verse. I'm thinking in terms of a verse. I'm adding the verse parts that I would normally do. I'm using a lot of the same instruments that I would use no matter what I'm doing. And so, this is all fitting right into the plan that I might have, right? So, so let's record this from the middle of that section. Right, so then we've got our verse. Okay, if we think about it in terms of a building block like that, what Logic does best in terms of the creativity here is give me anything that I want. It gave me the keys. It gave me the drums. It gave me the sound of the bass. It gave me this piano, which I warped with the step effects really quickly, right? So all of this stuff is just coming out without me having to do too much in terms of wondering which tool I'm going to grab. And then I just have to think of the chords. Right, so then we think, okay, does that work? Maybe. Oh, let's undo that. Once again, let me just tighten up the beginning. So you do have to understand what the MIDI is doing and how that's working, because we end up with situations like that where I'm playing ahead of the beat. And because it's on the groove track, it is changing the performance from what I played to match the drums, for better or worse. Now, here's where things get a little bit more useful sometimes with Logic. I'm going to come down here and switch on the score editor for a minute. Ooh, that's all the stuff I just played. Oof, 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 oof. Let's see. Score. Why are you not? Oh, there we are. I want to do a different quantization. That's just a visual quantization, but this is where it gets useful because I don't have to remember what I just played. I'm going to unlock the link button. That means that this score is going to stay attached to that keys no matter what happens. If you don't fully understand what I mean by that, that's okay. But it just means that I'm going to be able to, even when I record the bass, I'm going to be able to see what I did with the keyboards. And then I just did some weird thing at the end. But it's going to change the timing to match the drums because I have this on the groove track again. Okay, so how does this help us make a song, right? That's a question. How does this help us build that a little bit? Well, because we did this with the arrangement markers, I can option click on this and drag that verse over and the chorus over and the chorus over past the bridge. So now I've got the verses in the places I want them, the choruses in the places I want them. I haven't built the bridge yet, but they're all tying together. So it's like, instead of me thinking about the song as this 4-bar thing, I still built it as a short clip. This is where it all started, right here. And then I got to the point where I have the keys, the bass, and then this one piano part. Now I'm going to do a little bit more of this other instrument that goes throughout to tie the sections together a little bit. Okay, I'm going to start that over. I dropped my mouse and keyboard right at the beginning. And maybe I won't have it come in quite at the beginning, but I might have it come in with that piano part. anyway, you get the idea. This doesn't have to even be a part that's going to make it. It could just be idea building. But then I can play across the whole form. We can turn it down if we want to. We can pan some of these instruments out and start mixing. I mean, the best part about Logic in this case is that it gives me the access to the tools in a short amount of time, and then I get to do with them what I want. So mastering your tools becomes so important. It's like a rabbit hole. You could easily just go down and do so much stuff. All the tools being right there at our fingertips for creativity only work, though, if you know which ones they are and how to use them, right? I mean, that's the trick to everything. And why you need to treat Logic less like a workstation and more like an instrument that you have to practice and master and learn the nuances. I mean, you can't just use this and think, it's going to do the work for me. You can't think that it's going to give you all of the stuff that's required for a song. You actually have to come in and use it to amplify the thoughts that you're having. I mean, that's the trick with every software, but I think it's extra important with Logic. I think it's actually extra important with Ableton. I think it's less important in some ways with Pro Tools. Pro Tools just doesn't do a lot of like super creative things in and of itself. You can have third-party things and you can bring more to the table, but Pro Tools in and of itself is like a really good tape machine. It's great for editing. It's great for straight-ahead mixing. It's great for interfacing with consoles, doing post-production things. But in those cases, the tool itself, you master the technical parts of it. The creativity often is brought by somebody else to the table. With something like Logic, you can really do the dual role of creativity and engineer and producer the same way with Ableton. And then there's like Reaper, which is more like Pro Tools in many ways. And Studio One kind of crosses both of those things. Every tools has its strengths and weaknesses. And so I think that you play to the strengths. But in this case, a lot of the quirks of Logic are the same quirks that you would have with an instrument. So I played the tuba very high level for a long time. Was like my major at the university, and played in orchestras and recording ensembles. And it's like every time there's a certain note you play, right? With two of the fingers, it's never in tune exactly. You either have to bend it with your lips and air, or you pull out one of the tuning pipes for that one note. So there's always like this one tuning pipe that you're going to be adjusting as you play. It's a quirk of the instrument. The instrument is never exactly in tune. You always have to adjust it as you play. That's like half the features in Logic. Sure, some of them are bugs. Some of them are really quirky. Some of them are just completely stupid. And yet, if we learn how those work, then we're going to be able to perform Logic. But it takes practice and practice and practice, right? Practice makes perfect. And so I think that's a real critical part of it. Anyway, more information than you needed to know, but always fun to talk about, right? So there's a few of you watching. Any questions or things you'd like to discuss before we pull the plug on this stream, put it in the chat. I'd love to hear some of your questions or thoughts. We do these streams really so we get interaction. And then I decide to do them at like 9 p.m. Denver time on a weeknight when nobody's around. So that's on me. But still, there are a few of you. So if you have any questions, let's talk about them. What do we got? Anything? Yeah, this is like an actual interactive video. So you actually have to get on your keyboard and type comments and participate. You don't have to, but that's the goal. That's always the goal. It's like I'm having some sort of allergic reaction. I moved a bunch of equipment in my little studio, and so I have a lot of dust in the air, I think. But if there's no questions or comments from you all, then we'll pull the plug on this stream. I ranted enough. Ranted for 30 minutes. We could finish the song. I don't know if this is a good song or not. I wasn't thinking about the song as I was playing it. It was more of a demonstration to show a point. But I mean, there's a couple interesting things about it. I won't make you listen to it again. You can go back and listen to it. There's some cool stuff, but it's just bare bones right this moment. As with all things, I think this is something that people who want to write music sometimes struggle with this concept. Not always, but sometimes. Is that writing songs is like building a building, right? With bricks. Building a nice brick building. Every brick seems to be about the same, and every brick building that was built next to another brick building looks about the same. They're all made out of the same bricks and materials, right? But you have to figure out which thing is special about that song. And so with all of the bricks you build the building with, you have to figure out what that golden brick is. What is the one brick that's special that people want to come hear your song for? Is it a lyric in the hook that people really identify with? Is it the sound of a synthesizer that you play at the very beginning of the song that gets people jamming a little bit? Is it the groove of the drums that's a little bit different and special, more special than other songs that people have heard? What is that one thing that's special? And the rest of the song should sound like a lot of other songs. not exactly. I mean, you're not plagiarizing, but they should all fit in the genre of what you're writing. So it should fit inside the pop genre or the rock genre or the hip hop genre or the house genre or the metal genre, whatever. I mean, all of the pieces should sound and feel like they belong there. But then there's the one thing that's different that really draws people in. Some bands have multiple things which are the golden brick, so to speak. I think of some of the bands that I like from the last few decades, like Rush, for instance. Geddy Lee's voice, unique. Now, there were other singers that kind of fit into that high-pitched, nasally range, like John Anderson from Yes, or, it's like there were others. But his voice was certainly more unique. And then we had like the drummer with Neil Peart. I mean, he was playing stuff that is hard for anybody to play, and those rhythms. And then you dig a little deeper and like the poetry of the lyrics. It's like there were layers of things that were golden bricks in that one situation. And then you run into some of like the pop music that's out today, and it's all sounding similar in many ways, but they still find the unique thing that gets people singing and listening and buying tickets to go to concerts and streaming on Spotify and whatnot. So I think creativity is a little bit of maybe overrated commodity in the music industry. Not that it should be, but certainly I don't think you need it as much as maybe you think you need it to be successful. And so that's a hard pill to swallow for some, that, maybe not everything's creative. Instead of creativity, we have profitability. And do we think that it's going to sell? And is it the right image? And are we going to get enough people listening to it that the people above us can get richer, while the artist stays conflicted and suffering, so they write more great music, right? Is that the point or not? I don't know. Anyway, nobody's commenting, so we're going to pull the plug on this. And hopefully this was a useful rant a little bit. We're going to move some of our streams back into the daytime so that we can get more of an audience and more people listening. But that's coming up not today. So maybe even tomorrow we'll be able to do something. Tomorrow's Tuesday, the 29th. And perhaps we'll be able to do some more streams this week before the end of the month. Anyway, thanks for watching. There's been a few of you who are on here a little bit. And so hope you enjoyed this and found it useful. But catch you on the flip side. Thanks, everybody.